Relations. Thank you, Sue. My name is Irene Segura, and I lead on international relations and talent development for Extracts. To begin with, I would like to run through a couple of practicalities. So as you see, the session is on a Zoom meeting format. This is because we want it to be a conversation. So please, where you can, keep your cameras on and your sound on mute, unless you want to speak. If you have any questions at any point, please raise your hand and Axel will invite you to speak. We have Sung-Young Lee providing captions in Korean, and she is also here to interpret and translate. So if you want to ask questions in Korean instead of English, please do that. You have to make the most of it. So today's session will start with an introduction to the topic by our chair, followed by presentations from our two speakers. We will then have a 10-minute break and then just under 1 hour to have a discussion and questions and answers. Please, as we go along, think about any questions you would like to bring up afterwards. So before I hand over to Axel, let's do some quick introductions. When I call your name, please unmute yourself and tell us your name or the name of the company or project, and if you have international experience or not. So I will start with Chol-Sung Lee.
I'm a director of code. Last 20 years, I'm very old. For last 20 years, I have shown some kind of visual theaters, and last few years, especially in Europe, I had a tour. So today I will have a presentation, just shortly, and for the discussion, I want everybody's energetic discussion, even in Korean, because 한국어로 해도 돼요. 여기 통역이 있으니까. I think this event this evening is just for the Korean, no, not just for but mainly for the Korean participants. 한국 사람들을 위한 거니까 한국어로 하고 이쪽에 통역하고 이렇게 해도 될 것 같아요. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chil-Sung. I hope that if you're saying something that you want us to know, you tell us, because we will not understand in Korean. Thank you so much. Axel, next.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. So my name is Axel Satgé. I am an independent producer. And I run a company called Split Second, and we focus on outdoor and circus artists, and we help them tour in the UK and internationally. And I took a few shows to Korea over the past 5 years or so. So I'm very excited to be here this morning. And also, none of us in this virtual room are native speakers in English, so feel free to speak English the way you want or the way you can. Nobody will judge you or say anything.
Thank you so much, Axel. This is true. Axel is French and I'm Spanish, so nobody English is the first language here. So we're all in the same boat. Thank you. Jin-Yob, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Okay. Hi, my name is Jin-Yob Lee. 안녕하세요. 저는 이진엽이고요. I'm director of Elephant Lab. 코끼리들이 있는다 연출을 맡고 있고, I make a performance based, the elements of 3 elements of a site-specific performance and the participatory performance and the working with the community. 저는 이제 장소 특정적인 요소와 그리고 커뮤니티 작업 그리고 관객 참여 3가지 요소로 작업을 하고 있습니다. I'm so glad to meet you all here. And then I don't know what I can share much, but let's see what we can do. 아직 무슨 얘기를 더 많이 할 수 있을지 모르겠지만 앞으로 더 어떤 얘기를 할지 궁금하네요. Yep, done.
Thank you so much, Jin-Yob. Can we have Kim Seon, please, introduce yourself?
안녕하세요. 저는 창작집단 순비의 대표이자 연출을 맡고 있는 김소은이라고 합니다. 어떤 얘기를 나눌지 걱정도 되고 궁금하기도 하기도 하고 여러분들이랑 다양한 것들에 대해서 서로 의견을 주고받는 시간이 되었으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Would you mind repeating where you are working? Are you working as part of an organization or independently? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
창작집단 순비입니다. 크리에이티브 그룹 순비.
Thank you. Brilliant, thank you. Suchu, please.
Should I talk in English or Korean? I'll just say in Korean for the participants. 안녕하세요. 저는 추수연이고요. 거리예술 분야에서 지금 6년 정도 일을 하고 있고 이번 엑스트랙스 프로그램에 한국 파트의 프로듀서로 함께 하게 되어서 이런 자리를 한번 마련해 봤습니다. 오늘 많은 이야기 나눴으면 좋겠습니다.
Thank you very much. Lee Junyoung. Junyoung Lee.
안녕하세요. 저는 이주형이라고 합니다. 갈매라는 거리예술단체 연출을 맡고 있고요. 서울과 프랑스 마르세유를 오가면서 살고 있습니다. 만나서 반갑습니다.
Thank you. Could I ask all the participants, if you don't mind, just to add on the chat your websites, just so Axel can have a better understanding of the projects that perhaps you're involved in, just so we can make that link. That would be great. Thank you, as we speak. Thank you so much. Sang-Yun Park, please.
Yes. Hello, my name is Sang-Yun Park, which I am director of 64 Joe and a performer as well. So I'm working with my body and on the street mainly, and I'm still researching what is circus for on my own, like what is my own material or something like that. And I have studied in Isaac International School for Acting and Creativity, which is in Brisbane, Australia. And I have toured Adelaide Fringe Festival 2017 in a small clown show. And after that, I have started circus. So I'm now working on that, and I'm really pleased to be here, and let's see how we can talk about. 안녕하세요. 저는 박상현이라고 하고요. 64줄이라는 단체에서 퍼포머 겸 연출 등등으로 활동하고 있고, 호주에서 아이작이라는 단기 학교에서 공부를 했었고요. 그 학교에서 만들게 된 작은 광대 공연으로 애들레이드 프린지 페스티벌에 2017년도에 참가하면서 공연을 처음 시작했었습니다. 네, 오늘 무슨 얘기를 할지 모르겠지만 재밌는 얘기를 했으면 좋겠지만 제가 1시간 뒤에 가봐야 돼서요. 재밌게 해보겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. For those of you who are very kindly doing your introductions both in English and Korean, Sung-Yun, who is doing the captioning, don't worry about doing the captioning in English afterwards, because we will have heard it already, so you can rest your fingers. Thank you everyone who's able to do that. That's very helpful. Could I ask Unju Yu, please, to introduce yourself and also to say if you have any international experience. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Unju Yu. I run a company called The Strangers. We mainly work on mobile game combined with storytelling and a walkabout route in outdoor spaces. I had experience of participating in site-specific festival in Prague, Quadrenal. Oh, and it was one of the hardest experience I had because it's site-specific, and also even though it's a mobile game that we're developing, we also have to do site research quite intensely to interweave the story, what we created, to the background, the landscape around different cities and different places. But because of the distance from Korea and UK, where I live at the moment, it's quite hard to travel back and forth to do some site research, to find and get some permission from them as well. So it was pretty hard for me.
So just a quick question to make sure I understood well. Did you say you live in the UK at the moment?
Yes, yeah, I live in the UK.
Okay, where do you live?
I live in Stroud, Gloucestershire.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. And I think there's definitely some challenges that will be shared across everyone who's in the room here, and we'll have time to discuss that later. So thank you for that. Can I ask Jason Soul to speak and introduce himself?
마이크 키세요.
Yeah, your mic is on mute.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 서커스 창작그룹 소울의 김재섭이라고 합니다. 서커스를 하고 있고요. 그리고 서커스 중에서도 이제 폴이라고 하는 소재를 주로 다루고 있고, 그리고 서커스 말고도 이제 폴댄스라고 하는 거를 또 하고 있는데, 그래서 조금 폴과 연관된 것들을 조금 많이 하고 있고요. 서커스 작업을 하면서 영국에는 가본 적이 있는데 서커스를 하거나 뭐 거리예술 보러 간 적은 아니고 그냥 이렇게 놀러 갔다가 그냥 구경하고 온 정도입니다. 네, 뭐 저는 열심히 오늘 들으러 왔고요. 대화를 제가 하기보다는 또 많이 듣고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. That's great. And I think a couple of participants are going to join us a little bit later. So when they come in, we'll ask them to introduce themselves as well. But thank you very much for those introductions. Just a reminder before I hand over to Axel for everybody to speak slowly so that Sunyin can do the captioning and she doesn't have to, she doesn't have to work too hard. Before I hand over to Axel, I wanted to introduce him for all of those of you who don't know him. So Axel Satgé is a producer and co-director of Split Second. He was born in France and he has worked internationally in the physical and visual theatre sector for the past 10 years. He first discovered contemporary circus and artists like Circa, Compagnie XY and Fiamena when he was a producer at Les Halles de Schaerbeek, a multidisciplinary venue in Brussels, Belgium. In 2014, he moved to London to work with Crying Out Loud. During his time at Crying Out Loud, Axel met Nikki and JD. Together, they brought Not, a show, to several UK and international venues, including in Seoul, in Korea, and Totori in Japan. In 2019, Axel became an independent producer, working with companies like Nikki and JD and Gandini Juggling, as well as festivals such as Schuback and Manchester International Festival. In 2020, he created Split Second with Kevin Ratton. Split Second collaborates with artists who are blurring the lines between circus, dance, and theatre. Their ambition is to push the limit of what performance can be and create new and exciting experiences for artists and audiences in the UK and internationally. So that's our wonderful chair for the session today. And I will now hand over to you, Axel, to introduce the topic and our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. It's a bit intimidating to have your biography read out loud in front of you. I feel very special. Thank you so much. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm very happy to be sharing this conversation and be part of this Korea Connection program. The topic today is for our speakers, Cholsong and Jinyob, to share their real life experience of what it's like to take work from Korea to the international scene, especially in the UK. For those of you who are familiar with international touring, you know how exciting it is, how amazing it is to take your work to new audiences. But we also know it can be sometimes challenging, difficult. So yeah, I guess we're gonna talk a lot about both sides of the coin today, the positive sides and the challenges. I don't think I have much more to say to introduce the topic. Maybe one thing, as Irene said, the second half of the session will be a Q&A between you and the speakers. So if you have any question, please write them down, sorry, in the chat, and I will collect them so you don't forget. I will collect them and get back to you in the second part of the chat. And obviously, you can also just ask questions spontaneously in the second part of the chat. I guess we should start now. Cholsong, you ready to go?
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a second. 반갑습니다. 이건 뭐 인포멀 행사니까 그리고 전부 다 또 잘 아시는 분들이고 내 경험은 많지는 않지만 오늘 짧게라도 서로 도움이 되는 그런 시간이 되었으면 좋겠어요. 프레젠테이션은 일단 영어로 제가 진행을 하고 그다음에 이따 토론은 한국어로 하고 이렇게 하는 걸로 하죠. From now on, I will introduce my main work, massager, and then I will explain the short tour in Europe in 2017 in UK. First of all, I want to introduce my main work, massager. It's a kind of a community performance. I cannot read many things are here. Okay. Yeah, in the show, the citizen massagers has been trained as a street massagers and welcome and guest as a street in the street, and they do the paper massage after covering the body with paper. It leads to create paper humans as a copy of the body. I cannot read my text. I will try. And here you can see this is in Poland, and you can see about 1,000 people watched the massager performance. We massagers asked the guest to write down something to say to themselves on the paper body. And then now they are yelling, shouting that sentence. You can just imagine the performance. And then, just a minute. Okay, now I can read it. By making them to the blind, the massagers are going to make their guests to feel isolation, fear, loneliness, etc., and feel others without eyesight. This scene was in Greek festival in Spain, so you can see, you can watch some atmosphere of the show. And after bringing them to the isolated area, in the barren fields like this or rather busy streets, this is London, near Greenwich. Yeah, it's in the Greenwich Dockland Festival. And this is St. Petersburg in Russia. And setting the guest in blind in a view like this for a while, and massagers are approaching them to hug and bringing their masks off. In June, in Russia, we can enjoy the snow, so you can see it. It's a special experience because in Korea, we don't have snow in June. And then after that time, the following scenes. This is Poland Gdansk Feta Festival. This is Krakow in Poland. And in the end, finally, we burned all the paper bodies like a ceremony. This is again Greek festival in Spain. So I think you can guess and imagine and how the performance go on. Now I want to explain about the creation and tour. In 2016, the Fira Tarega in Spain, they suggest me to create some new work. They want to recruit their immigrant people from Mexico and Algeria and Morocco, and then they asked me to make some community performance for them. This was the beginning point. So the pre-showcase was shown in the Seoul before Fira Tarega by support of the Seoul Street Arts Creation Center. And then I went to Tarega, and then I met the immigrant people, and then we made a great performance there. As you know, this festival is also a big market. So in that, after performance, many artistic directors are invited this show to another festivals. So following years, we did some performances there, so you can see it later. 2017, at first we went to Russia, St. Petersburg, and then we were invited to finally in London and in Stockton. Both festival, in that time, both festival had a focus, a Korean focus. So in London, in my memory, 4 Korean companies was invited, and in Stockton, 3 Korean companies was invited. I had a lot of special experience there, but just 1 or 2 examples I want to share with you. In London, the massager citizens 5 citizens was recruited, but all were from different countries. One from Hong Kong, one from Taiwan, and one from New Zealand, one from UK, one from Korea, me, one from India. So 6 people were from different countries. So in other words, the performance was like a melting hot pot of countries. So I had many experience, but I cannot share now in short time. And in Stockton International Riverside Festival, also it's a kind of market. So I met several artistic directors, and I was invited the following years. Stockton is a workers' city, and it has the festival is 30 years old. So I felt the citizens has a big pride for the festival. It was very impressive for me. I was impressed, and as I said, the workers' city means I could feel the physically and the mind. I could feel they are very open. So this in both festivals, I had a special experience, but I know this Korean focus was made by the long-term network with the extracts in UK and also the Korean Street Arts Association. So I think this kind of several years constant the network is very important. And I felt also I experienced technical issues. As you know, we of course we are considering budget funding, especially funding. I got the funding from Korean Art Management. It has several support funding, as you know, 예경 Center Stage Korea, and also 예경 해외 아트 마켓 쇼케이스 지원. And also you can apply for Korean Art Council, 국제교류기금, 문예위 이런 것들이 있죠. About the performance fee, it depends on the festivals. We need the very smart brain to negotiate, but it's difficult to. I don't want to push it so hardly. So you need to consider it. And about the visa and documents, it's the UK asked many documents in comparison with the Korea. Insurance and tax, and so you need to study about that. And after following years, we went to Poland and Barcelona, Chalon, and next year, 2022, Germany, Detmold. But this festival, for this festival, it was supposed to have a show in 2020, but in 2 years it was delayed because of the COVID-19. In the end, I want to say about some keywords of which what I said. The first one is it's very important to have a showcase in big market like Fira Tarega in Chalon in France, Aurillac in France, or Passage Festival in Denmark for Northern Europe. You have to research for the big market. In the beginning, I had a performance in Fira Tarega, and then I got a way to go abroad more. And second one is the co-work between festivals is very important. Actually speaking, between artistic directors. For example, in Korea, Gwacheon, Ansan, Seoul Artistic Festival, the artistic directors of festivals, they had a long-term network with Stockton and Firatarega. And then after that, as a result, the several Korean team was invited. Third one is the constant network between two countries is very important. For example, now Extracts in UK and Korean Street Arts Center. And also recently the Catalan, the street arts and Korean art management. Also, they have a constant network. The last one is the Korea really need the agent or association to be responsible for above, but I think we don't have it. So I want to suggest here the producer or Extracts will try harder in the future, but we need some center for that, agent for that. That's what I said, what I felt. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnson. That was a very interesting presentation. I couldn't see your work in London. I hope you can come back very soon so I can see it. Just a reminder for everyone, if you have any question for the speakers, you can write down the questions in English or in Korean in the chat if you want already now, and we will answer them, or the speakers will answer the questions in the second part of this session. I guess now it's over to Jinyob. You ready to go?
Yes, thank you. 잘 들었어요, 설성쌤. 오케이. 저는 조금 더 한 스탁턴에서 일화들만 얘기할게요. Okay, I'm just gonna focus on what's happening in the Stockton. Okay, I'm going to talk about the performance called 물질 that I presented at the Stockton International Riverside Festival in 2019 in the UK. In short, the 물질 is about the asylum seekers and the social minorities. I will not go for more details about the performance itself. I will concentrate about the process to present in the UK. In 2019, the Ansan International Street Art Festival director called Jong-myam contacted me. He told me that the Stockton International Riverside Festival, also known as SURF, director called Jam, was interested in my work. During that year, I already had a trip planned to the UK for research purpose. So it gave me the opportunity to meet with Jam. After a few discussions, she suggested me to have a collaboration with an artist called Jane from Stockton-on-Tees. From there, both festivals agreed to support this collaboration and present it at both festivals. So the following year, John came to Korea and she was able to see the premiere of 물질, but she told me that 물질 will not be able to perform in UK because of the health and safety concerns. For example, she mentioned that if children see the performance, they might be tempted to try it out at home. It is not something we consider in Korea, so I didn't have much hope to present in the UK. But after that, I was able to visit the UK and attend SURF with Elephant's Love team members and a producer from the Ansan Street Art Festival. Since it was the final year for Jam as the festival director, I got introduced to the new director called Jeremy. When I met him, as an introduction about my work, I showed him the video of 물질 performance. He was enthusiastic and he actually invited to present the 물질 performance in 2019 as a first step. And then we could plan later for new production in 2021. So that was the plan. But somehow I was still wondering about the health and safety issue in the UK mentioned by Jan. For example, one of my other performances called Bodies in the Dark need to take place in completely darkness. In 2017, I introduced this performance to the UK presenters at the PAMS. They also voiced the serious concerns such as the covering the emergency signs. So I was curious when the presenters consider performances to invite how much the health and safety issue matter. So back to the surf. I'm gonna show the video clip because otherwise you guys are watching in my face all the time. So I'm gonna show this. Okay. Okay, so there is no sound, so I will keep going. Back to the surf in 2019, we finally presented Mul질. It was the first tour in the UK for the Elephant's Laugh. All the technical staffs from the festival were so efficient, very professional and supportive. I was worried about the water tanks over the night because many people from UK told me that Stockton is a rough area, but there was a guard all night, which was reassuring. Another thing we had to consider regarding the water tanks was about their size. When I created Mul질, I only thought to have Korean people in them. However, in general, Europeans are much bigger than Koreans, and this could become a problem. However, even there were a few hiccups, overall, it went well and worked out for the best. One of the highlights of the collaboration was to work with Jane. She works at a place called the Drop-In, which organizes the cultural activities for the asylum seekers. So it was easy to recruit the asylum seekers to participate in our performance. When we presented other festivals, had much more difficulties to find asylum seekers to join the performance. As for the other collaboration we plan to have, after presenting the performance, COVID-19 became a worldwide issue. And as a result, the surf had been held virtually for the last 2 years. Also, the Ansan Street Art Festival directors and all the festival members have been renewed. However, I continued to research for collaboration with Jane in Seoul in 2020. And we are still looking forward to collaborating in 2 years. Now I'm going to talk about the grants in Korea. Before I started touring abroad, I thought that if I received many invitations from international festival, there will be no problem for me to go. I thought invitations were the limiting factor. However, now I know that there is only a limited.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but would you mind speaking a little bit slower? Just a little bit slower, if that's okay, just because the information you're giving is going to be super useful. And I just want to make sure that the participants can receive free captioning. Sorry to interrupt. Just a little bit slower. Thank you.
So, however, now I know that there is only a limited opportunity for the grants. We cannot receive as many grants as we have invitations. Also, it is much harder to have a big-scale production touring abroad, particularly when we have a big set. The logistics become really complicated, such as planning for the shipping, as well as the transportation between multiple festivals as well. Multiple festivals also means that sometimes there are long gaps in terms of the time between them, and we need to plan for storage. And sometimes it is the opposite, and we are short of time to bring the set between them. On another aspect, one of the best things I felt for the touring abroad is about meeting the local communities. It is a very enriching experience from both sides. We learn a lot about each other in a very short time, and we are able to accomplish great things despite the communication and then culture differences. We didn't have an interpreter, so all the actors learned to communicate by themselves using body languages as well as translation software on the phone. Somehow it worked very well. Through this whole experience, I realized that Moodle is not that ideal in a pandemic environment and also challenging in the context of climate change. The performance uses a lot of water and power, which can be consideration for festivals. Also, there is an intimacy for some audience member to being inside of tanks with actors. I believe this will become more and more concerned. Now, when creating a new production, I'm much more aware and concerning about these challenges. There are many thoughts and suggestions in performing art field after all, I need to make my own standard and make actions. This is challenging, but I need to keep thinking about new approaches to tackle these issues and make it easier for touring. Okay, thank you. So I'm looking forward to the discussion and Q&A later. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Genia. That was a great presentation. Lots of very useful tips. I was looking at our schedule for today's session, and actually we are 8 minutes early, which is great. Never happens, but it's still time for a break. So maybe we take a break now, and we come back in 10 minutes. Oh, and Genia, sorry, can you stop sharing your screen, please, so I can see everyone? Thank you very much. So yeah, maybe we take a break now, and then we go straight into the Q&A with the speakers. I think Irene and I have a few questions for Jinyob and Cholsong, and hopefully you guys also have the opportunity to ask the questions you want to ask, again in English or in Korean. So if I got this right, I think in Korea it's 6:44. So should we meet again at 6:54 or 9:54 in the UK? Great. You can all stay connected. You can just turn off your camera if you want. Go grab a cup of tea or whatever you like, and see you again in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm here. Hi, Irene.
I'm here as well.
Sorry, my computer is slow with turning the camera on and off.
No, totally fine. Do feel free to grab a coffee. I'll send you the questions that I have.
Okay, great. I have a ton of questions to ask. I'm sure the participants too.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
See you in a few minutes. Bye. Hey, hi everyone. Hi again. Hope you all had a good break. Let's start again. If you can all switch your camera back on, it's nicer to see your faces. Thank you very much. And I think since we started earlier today, someone new came. Who is it? Jean? Jean, are you here? Can you introduce? I can't see you. Sorry, too many little faces on my screen. Can you introduce yourself briefly? Say your name, what you're doing, and if you have any international experiences.
Okay, I'm in a cafe now, so it's gonna be a little bit loud, but if you're okay, I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Jin. I'm an independent producer and also a programmer for music festivals in South Korea. I am working as a producer with a different artist group, including CCOT. And good to see you, Choi-sung, here. Yeah, I've been to UK with Korean artists in 2017. And we had a Korea focus session in a Greenwich and Dockland Festival, and I was a coordinator between Extracts and Korea Street Art Association. And I do manage international touring for the street art companies, and would love to work with more with the different international artists for the collaboration as well. And I'm gonna lead the last session of this program as well. So yeah, good to see you all here.
Thank you very much, Jean. Okay, well, let's get started with the Q&A with the speakers. So to begin with, to get things started, I think Irene and I will start the conversation. We have a few questions for the speakers, but please feel free to ask questions too. Either pop them in the chat if you want, or just raise your hand when you have a question. And again, feel free to speak in English or in Korean. And by the way, thank you so much to the person who's doing the subtitles. It's amazing. I wish I had that sort of brain capacity. That must be very hard. So thank you. So just to get the conversation started, Choi-sung and Jin-yob, I just wanted to go over the process you had to go through to take your shows internationally, like sort of a step-by-step guide on how you did it. And I was curious to know how you made the connections with international programmers in the first place. Did they find you? Did you find them? I know you mentioned marketplaces. So how do you go to those places? Do you have to apply? Do you have to pay? Are you invited? All these sort of practical things.
Sorry to interrupt. Sinyoung can interpret in voice sound now. I think she can. 괜찮으시죠, 승현님?
네, 괜찮습니다.
네네네. 지금 이제부터는 한국어랑 영어로 통역을 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 알겠습니다. So I'm not going to be doing the live trans captioning right now, but I'm going to switch over to translating, interpreting instead of writing the subtitles. So if you have any questions, I'll be interpreting what you say into both Korean and English.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
제가 먼저 얘기할까요? 그 악셀에 대한 대답인데, 악셀이 어떻게 네트워크를 처음 구축해서 이게 진출하게 되었냐 그거 하고, 그 다음에 또 실질적인 문제들은 어떻게 해결했냐 이런 거였죠.
So Song is going to answer to you regarding the two questions that you had. The first one was the making contact with the international directors and festivals. And the number two was the practical problems that they have to go through to present their performances to international audiences.
그 단체가 개별적으로 이렇게 뭐 작품을 메일을 보낸다든가 컨택을 해서 이렇게 성사되는 건 너무 힘들어요.
So sending emails to international festival directors or making applications to those festivals is extremely very difficult.
그 제가 2016년도에 피라타레가에서 저한테 작품을 만들어 달라고 했던 거는 이미 2011년에 자화상이라는 작품을 그쪽에서 선보였던 그거로 네트워크가 형성됐던 거예요. 그래서 그쪽 예술 감독이 쭉 지켜보다가 이 팀한테 이거를 제안해야겠다 하고 한 것이 이제 2016년도에 공연을 마사지사를 하게 된 거죠.
So the contact that I made with the Fira Tareka in 2016 was actually it actually dates back to 2011 when I presented my performance called Self-Portrait. And since then they had eyes on me, and so in 2016 they finally contacted me, the Fira Tareka, about my performances.
그리고 그 피라타레가 감독인 누구죠? 조르디가 2016년 이전서부터 한국의 안산 축제나 서울 축제나 이렇게 축제 감독들하고 교류가 있어서 계속 오면서 작품들을 봤어요. 그러니까 그 몇 년간에 이어진 네트워크 때문에 그런 제안을 또 하게 된 거고.
Also, Jordi, who was the director for the 2016 Fira Tarega Festival, he actually had connections with the directors of Korean festivals, including Ansan Street Arts festivals and Seoul Street Arts festivals. So he had seen some performances and shows during that time. That's why he was able to make contact with me.
그래서 그 피라타레가의 마사지사를 피라타레가와 공동 제작을 한 것도 보면은 2011년서부터 시작된 또 네트워크가 쌓인 그런 결과이죠.
So in all, the reason why I was able to present my show Massager to on Fira Tarega was actually made by years of connections that was made first in 2011.
그다음에 지금 UK에 이렇게 초청을 받은 것도 2017년에 초청을 받은 것도 그 이전에 엑스트락스와 한국 거리예술협회가 지속적으로 몇 년간 또 네트워크를 쌓아놓은 결과예요. 그래서 제가 아까 발제에서도 얘기했듯이 이게 단번에 되는 게 아니고 이러한 네트워크의 산물이다.
And also, the reason why I was able to be invited to the UK festival in 2017 was also the result of years of relationships between Extracts and the Korea Street Arts Association. So, as I said before, it's not something that you do it just right there. It is something that you can do after years of accumulation of experiences and relationships between them.
그래서 이제 정리해서 얘기를 하자면은 이제 앞으로 이제 코로나 이후 지금서부터 이 포럼도 하나의 기점이 되어서 서로 간의 네트워크를 형성을 하고 자기소개를 하고 하면서 이것이 또 향후 몇 년이 쌓여야지 그 결과가 나오는 거지. 그런 지속성이 필요하다.
So all in all, what I want to say is that going forward, I would like this session or this meeting to be the milestone where we can make connections first here, and then we should build on this connection as we go forward for the next few years, so that we can present our shows to international audiences based on this.
Yeah, about the practical things, I will speak later. I spoke too much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, I completely agree with you. This is a very long game, and it takes time to build relationship with international markets, whether they're near or far. What about you, Junior? Did you have a similar experience or anything different?
네, 철성님께서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 예, 이러한 해외 투어라든지 이런 것들은 아무래도 여러 이제 경험들과 그리고 이제 관계들이 쌓여서 진속이 될 수 있는 것 같습니다. 감사합니다. 네, 진영님도 말씀 부탁드릴게요.
저도 투어를 간 건 2019년도가 본격적으로 간 건 그게 처음인데 그 전에 이제 해외를 가기 위해서 준비는 한 2013년도부터 했던 것 같아요.
So in retrospect, 2019 was the year that I had the tour in full-fledged manner, but I actually started doing the preparations since 2013 for the international tour.
사실 저는 이제 축제에서 공연도 하지 않고 장소 특정형 공연을 하고 또 이제 소규모 관객이 공연을 하다 보니까 축제형 공연을 처음에는 목표로 하지 않았던 것 같아요.
Well, since I do site-specific shows with small audiences, I wasn't going for festival-oriented shows.
근데 또 축제가 아니면 그런 베뉴를 찾기가 어려워서 처음에는 축제를 지향하지 않았는데 하다 보니까 그래도 축제를 찾아야 했고 또 이제 서유럽에 있는 축제에서는 언제나 이제 관객의 수를 계속 물어봐서 제 공연 자체가 소수의 관객만 볼 수 있으니까 유럽에서 북유럽으로 리서치를 하러 갔어요.
Also, but I still wanted to find some venues to present my shows, and also I had to find those big festivals to present my shows, although I wasn't going for festivals because I needed some space to present my shows. And Western European people, they asked me the number of audiences that I had for my shows. So I actually had to go for the North European people.
그래서 이제 예술경영지원센터에서 축제에 가서 이제 내 공연을 홍보하는 그 지원해주는 게 있어서 사실 많은 해 동안 다양한 이제 축제들을 돌아다녔어요.
Also, the Korea Art Management Center gave us support so that we could travel Europe for many times.
그래서 내 공연과 맞는 축제를 찾는데 좀 시간을 많이 들였던 것 같아요.
And also it took us some time to find the festivals that would fit our shows.
그래서 제가 2019년도에 덴마크, 헝가리, 영국, 이탈리아를 가게 됐는데 헝가리는 이제 서울예술축제, 거리예술축제에서 보고 초청을 했고 여기까지 할까요?
계속 하셔도 됩니다.
했고 또 그 덴마크는 제가 직접 덴마크에 있는 축제를 가서 연출 그 축제 감독한테 메일을 보내서 아까 이천 선생님이 어렵다는 메일을 보냈는데 그 감독님이 너무 좋다고 해가지고 만나자고 해서 만났던 경우이고 그리고 이제 그 영국은 그 잔을 통해서 제레미를 만나서 초청됐고 이탈리는 그 팜스 초이스에 선정돼가지고 이제 몸에 울리 공연을 했다가 몸에 울리 공연이 이제 초청됐는데 동시에 이제 물질까지 두 개가 다 초청이 됐어요.
So in 2019, I visited 4 European countries. The first one was Denmark. I actually went to Denmark and met with directors there in person, directors, and I emailed my shows to director and they liked it. So we met. And then I also went to Hungary and actually they liked my shows and they invited me. They actually saw my show at the Seoul Street Art Festival. So they invited me. And I also went to the UK. I also, like I said before, I met John and Jeremy and they invited me. Also, I also went to Italy, and it was actually I was invited to Italy through the PAM's Choice, and I was supposed to present my show Bodies in the Dark first, and then they actually liked my shows, and I was able to present Murgel as well.
그래서 아까 사실 차 선생님이 얘기한 것처럼 사실 축제에서 다양한 나라에서 오는 예술 감독들에게 보여주는 게 제일 좋은 방법인 것 같고, 그래서 한국에 있는 축제 감독님들이 더 많은 이제 프레젠터들을 데려오는 게 가장 좋고, 두 번째 이제 팜스 초이스를 이용하는 게 좀 효과적이었던 것 같아요.
So all in all, as Charles said, I think it would be great if we could use the big festivals as a market where we are able to meet directors from various festivals and countries. And the second was that the PAM's Choice was also a good way to present and make connections to the international directors.
Great,
Okay.
thank you very much. Oh, sorry, do you want to say something more, Genial? No, okay. I don't see any questions coming from you guys, so I'm happy to carry on asking questions, but again, feel free to raise your hands or ask any questions you want in the chat. One question I had for you both, Cholsung and Jinyob, is you touched on it very briefly in your presentations, but how do you manage with finances when taking a show from Korea to Europe and the UK specifically? I imagine the fee is very different, or what you charge is very different in Korea than, and how do you manage that, and who's paying? Where do you get the money from?
네, 일단 채팅창에 일단은 질문이 다 안 보이는데요. 일단은 그러면은 제가 계속 질문을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 그 와중에도 혹시 질문이 있으신 분들은 언제든 채팅창에 질문 올려주시기 바랍니다. 제가 한 가지 더 여쭤보고 싶은 것은 이제 철성님, 진현님 두 분께 말씀을 드리고 싶은데, 그 이제 프레젠테이션에서도 잠깐 언급을 해주셨지만 저는 그 자금적 지원에 대해서 좀 궁금하거든요. 파이낸스적 부분이 한국에서 유럽, 특히 영국 쪽으로 이제 그 쇼를 이제 지금 가지고 가셨는데 또 돈은 얼마나 들었는지, 누가 그 자금을 대는지 그런 부분이 조금 궁금합니다.
네, 제가 먼저 얘기할게요. 일단 축제에서는 공연료를 받고, 근데 공연료가 를 잘 받고 협상을 잘 하고, 그다음 한국에서의 그 몇 가지 그 기금이 있죠. 아까도 얘기했지만은 문예진흥 기금에는 한국문화예술위원회에서 주는 국제기루 기금이 있고, 그다음에 예경에서 주는 센터 스테이지 코리아가 있고, 그다음에 해외 진출 아트마켓 같은 그런 곳 진출할 때 지원하는 게 있고, 그다음에 그 외에 또 기금들이 있는데 뭐 그건 찾아보시고, 대표적으로 이 두 개 기관인데 두 개의 차이는 아마 아시는 분들은 알 거예요. 문예진흥기금 쪽은 항공료나 홍보비 말고 제작비까지 지원을 하는 거고, 그다음에 예경 쪽은 센터 스테이지 코리아는 항공료와 홍보비 정도만 지원을 하죠. 그 세부적인 건 또 있으니까. 근데 이제 쇼케이스 지원이라고 또 해외 빅 마켓들의 쇼케이스 지원이라고 또 따로 있기 때문에 이런 것들을 계속 트라이를 해서 하나라도 건지면 성공하는 거죠. 뭐 그렇게 얘기할 수 있을 것 같아요.
Well, I'll go first. As for festivals, yes, we receive fees really well with good negotiations. But in Korea, we apply for funding for many different organizations, including the Arts Council Korea and also the Korea Arts Management Services. So, for example, for the Arts Council Korea, they actually support the flight fees and also the accommodation, and also as well as the production funding as well. And also for the Korea Arts Management Services, they provide the flights and also the promotional fees as well as the showcase as well. So if you try and try to apply to many different organizations, it is likely that you get at least one funding from one of those organizations.
Thank you. What about you, Junior? Do you have any other tips to add?
저는 사실 같이 비슷한 얘기긴 한데 그 문예위나 캄스에서 기금을 받을 때 문예위의 경우는 다 지원을 해주지만 캄스에서 센터 스테이지 받을 때는 화물비 50%는 자부담을 해야 되잖아요. 그래서 저는 무대가 커가지고 그게 좀 부담스러웠어요.
I'm sorry because of the noise in the background. 죄송합니다. 뒤에 잠깐 제가 앰뷸런스가 지나가는데.
네. 그래서 이제 그 캄스의 지원은 전체를 지원하지 않고 나서 화물비가 50% 자부담이어서 그게 부담스러웠어요.
네, 알겠습니다. So I think I have the similar case. So for the Arts Council Korea, they actually provide us with the full funding, whereas the CAMS or the Korea Arts Management Services, the funding is also titled Center Stage. They actually provide only 50% for the cargo shipping. So since I had the large scale of setting, I actually had to pay a lot of money, even though it was only a 50% off. So that was a little bit of burden to me.
그리고 이제 이 기금을 받을 때도 이제 센터 스테이지 같은 경우는 하나만 초청되면 안 되고 어쨌든 2개는 초청돼야 되고 2개 이상은 초청이 돼야 되고 만약에 나랑 다른 팀이 같이 묶여 있어야 되고 어떤 조건들이 있어서 그걸 맞추는 것도 쉽지는 않은 것 같아요.
And also, in addition, if you are to get some funding from the center stage, you actually had to be invited to more than 2 festivals outside Korea. And so there are some criteria that you have to meet. So those situations were kind of a blockage to us.
그리고 뭐 예를 들어서 이제 이탈리아에서도 초청을 하고 싶어서 그럼 우리가 다른 축제 하나를 더 제안해 달라고 했을 때 밀란에 축제가 바로 있긴 한데 그게 1시간 거리다 보니까 밀란을 제안을 못하고 우리 지역에서 공연을 하면 1시간 거리에서는 공연을 하면 안 돼. 이제 그런 얘기들이 덴마크에서 있었거든요. 그래서 같은 나라에서 추천이 되는 경우는 또 어렵기도 한 것 같아요.
So for example, when Italy wanted to invite us to their festival, we asked them, so we want to get more funding from one of those Korean organizations. And so we need to get invited to another Italian festival. And they actually recommended one festival in Milan. However, as based on our experience on Denmark, I heard there were some rules that we cannot be invited to 2 different festivals in one country. So there was one of the
그건 이제 초청은 돼도 되는데 이제 축제들이 내 지역에서 여기서 만약에 밀란에서 하면 밀란에서 1시간 가까운 거리에서는 공연을 하면 안 된다. 이제 그런 규칙이 있어가지고 초청이 2개.
네.
거리감이 가까운.
너무 가까우면 안 된다라는 말씀이시죠? 알겠습니다. Sorry. Okay, I'll tell you once more. So when Italy wanted to invite us to their festival, they actually recommended another festival in Milan so that we could get the funding from the center stage from the camps. However, based on our experience in Denmark, it seemed like there were some rules that we cannot be invited to 2 different festivals that are 1 hour away apart. So that's something that we had to go through.
네, 여기까지 할게요.
So that's it for me.
Thank you. That's super interesting. Also, I wanted to thank Irene and Jean who are putting some very useful information in the chat. I hope you can all see that thank you both for adding things to the conversation. And I think we have a newcomer in the room as well. Hi, Juliet.
Hi, everybody. So sorry I'm late. How is everybody?
No worries at all. Can you just say a quick hi, who you are, what you do?
Yes, so I'm Juliet Hardy. I work with Jeremy Shine on Stockton International Riverside Festival in the northeast of England. We're a 4-day festival, and it's always the first Saturday and Sunday of August each year, and we've been going for over 34 years. It's outdoor art specifically, and we were delighted to present Elephant's Laugh in 2019, which feels so long ago, but it was such a magical moment for that show. So hi. And yeah, we obviously have great connections, and we hope to explore that. My role is creative programs manager, we've just gone through a restructure, and we're actually delivering a festival today, which is live outside. So apologies that I've missed that, because we have events as well as throughout the whole of the year.
네, 일단은 악셀님이 말씀해 주신 것부터 말씀드리겠습니다. 지금 저희가 통역을 하고 있는 와중에도 이레네님과 진님께서 채팅창에서 유용한 정보를 주고받고 계시니까 채팅창 한번 확인해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그리고 이제 줄리에 하디님께서도 지금 저희 미스팅에 참석을 해 주시고 계신데요. 줄리에님은 스톡튼 인터내셔널 리버사이드 페스티벌에서 제레님과 함께 같이 일을 하고 계신 분이고, 그다음에 그 스톡튼 페스티벌에 대해서 말씀해 주셨습니다. 지난 34년간 지속이 되어 온 페스티벌이고 매년 8월 첫째 토요일에 진행이 되고 있습니다. 그리고 2019년에 코끼리들이 웃는다 팀 초청해서 공연을 한 바 있고요. 계속해서 지금까지 좋은 관계를 유지해 왔고, 그리고 이제 코로나가 진행이 되고 있지만 그래도 좀 이제 재개하는 그런 분위기를 타서 오늘도 여러 가지 공연이 진행이 되고 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 참석을 해 주셨고 앞으로도 많은 이야기가 오고 가기를 기대한다고 말씀해 주셨습니다.
Thank you very much. And yes, Juliet, I guess you must have noticed now everything is translated English to Korean, Korean to English.
Thank you. I'll slow down.
I should have mentioned that before. And we have a question or a comment from Jin. I see you have a raised hand.
Yes, it's not a question, but add to what Jinhyuk mentioned. I'm also suggesting that when we are invited by the international festivals, it's always helps us if we are inviting not only by ourselves, but inviting with different Korean artist groups as well, so that we can share the freight cost together. And then also it will be easier for getting the fund from the Korea Arts Management Services, because they take it as a benefit to introduce Korean artists to the festival if we are having more than 2 Korean shows. So not only competing with other artist companies, but later let's try to go together so that we can efficiently work together. That's what I want to add on it.
제가 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 이제 질문이 아니라 진현님께서 말씀해 주신 거에 더해서 말씀을 드리고 싶은데요. 일단은 국제 페스티벌에서 초청을 받을 때에는 우리만 받는 것이 아니라 다른 이제 아티스트 그룹 컴퍼니와도 같이 좀 협력을 해야 될 필요가 있습니다. 왜냐하면 화물 비용도 공유를 할 수가 있고, 그리고 이제 캠스로부터 지원을 받기도 조금 더 수월한 면이 있기 때문입니다. 그래서 우리만 꼭 가야 돼 이렇게 경쟁만 생각을 하시기보다는 같이 함께 갈 수 있도록 좀 효율적으로 생각을 하셔야 될 필요가 있습니다.
Thank you. That's a very useful tip. And Irene whispered a question for you, Juliet, in my ear. Yeah, are you okay to talk?
Yeah, that's great.
Yes. Well, since you work for a festival, it would be good to hear from you how how should Korean artists get in touch with the festival to present their work to you? And what's the process from your side to work with artists coming from the other side of the world?
네, 줄리엣님께 먼저 질문 하나 드리겠습니다. 줄리엣님께서 지금 페스티벌에서 이제 일을 하고 계시잖아요. 그러면 궁금한 점이 한국 아티스트 분들을 아티스트 분들께서 국제 이제 영국 페스티벌에서 참여하실 수 있도록 하기 위해서 어떻게 연락을 취해야 하는지 그 과정이 조금 궁금합니다. Sorry to interrupt. I had to interpret.
No, that's great. So we wouldn't necessarily present a show of scale that we haven't seen. So it's key for myself and Jeremy to be contacted and have a conversation with the company first. And we don't have a set procedure of taking applications at a certain date or a certain time. It is very much about making a connection and a conversation with myself and Jeremy and sharing video footage and obviously timescales of when the show is going to happen if we can travel to watch the show. We are oversubscribed, but obviously we do ensure that at least 14 companies are international within a festival with about 45 companies, and we do want to keep that international. So we would have contact via our website and we respond to every company, but obviously video calls are ideal and video footage, and myself and Jeremy to come and see a show, or for us to be put in touch with someone who has seen a show in the UK that we can speak to.
네. 그래서 그 말씀을 드리자면은 일단은 가장 중요한 것은 그 저희 회사로 일단은 먼저 연락을 해주시는 게 가장 우선일 것 같습니다. 그렇다고 해서 저희가 뭐 신청서를 작성하고 이러한 정해진 그런 절차는 없는데요. 일단은 저희에게 저와 그리고 제레미에게 조금 연락을 하셔서 먼저 대화의 물꼬를 트는 게 아마 가장 중요할 것 같습니다. 그래서 그 퍼포먼스 쇼의 비디오 푸티지라든지 그 다음에 시간도 조금 말씀해 주셔야 되고, 그리고 저희가 그 퍼포먼스를 한번 볼 수도 있으면 좋을 것 같은데요. 그래서 저희가 사실은 지금은 공연을 담당하고 있는, 연락하고 있는 그런 회사가 45개 정도가 됩니다. 그래서 조금 저희가 할 수 있는 것보다 좀 회사의 수가 좀 많다고 할 수 있는데요. 일단은 저희 그 웹사이트를 통해서 저희에게 연락을 해 주시거나, 그리고 이제 어느 정도 대화의 물꼬가 텄다면 비디오 영상을 보내주신다거나 아니면 화상회의 같은 걸 통해서 서로 지속적으로 조금 관계를 유지해 나가는 것이 아마 더 바람직하지 않을까라고 생각합니다.
Thank you very much. I see that Andrew, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering names, but sorry, Irene, did you have something to say?
Okay, I just wanted to build on what Juliet was saying and acknowledge that sometimes programmers and people who work at festivals have very limited time and resources to go abroad to see shows. And that sometimes, even though if it's not those particular people who are going, because it's a very well networked sector in the UK, we talk amongst ourselves. So for example, there's a possibility that if Extracts is going to Seoul, and we tend to go quite often, we come back with a series of recommendations because we know the festivals over here. So just again, building on that idea of the network and how important it is to not just rely on that one connection with the festival itself, but look at it a little bit more kind of organically across the sector, because we do share quite a lot of information, don't we, Juliet? So just a note on that point.
Yes, that would, if there's ways that we can. Oh,
Juliette, can just to leave time for the translation.
Thank you. 네, 그래서 이레네님께서 말씀해 주신 부분은 그 지금 줄리엣님께서 말씀해 주신 부분에 조금 연장해서 말씀해 주셨는데, 사실 이 그 페스티벌 프로그래머 분들이나 그 다음에 이제 일하시는 그 스태프분들께서 시간이 이제 한정적일 수밖에 없습니다. 리소스도 한정적일 수밖에 없어서 그래서 어떻게 하고 있냐면, 예를 들어서 엑스트랙스에서 서울에 와서 여러 뭐 공연을 보고 그다음에 작품들을 보고 돌아가셔서 그다음에 거기서 이제 서울에서 만났던 여러 가지 뭐 극단이라든지 회사라든지 이런 사람들의 추천을 받고서 돌아가게 됩니다. 그러면은 이것들을 영국 내에서도 이제 거리 예술 네트워킹이 굉장히 잘 형성이 되어 있기 때문에 그 분들하고도 이런 부분이 좋더라라고 서로 이야기를 많이 나누고 계신다고 합니다. 그래서 단지 그 한 극단끼리만 이렇게 연계가 되는 것이 아니라 이렇게 한 극단에서 이 회사에서 이런 추천을 오면은 그러한 추천받은 리스트들이 여러 다른 영국 내에 있는 그런 어떤 그 관계자분들께도 같이 공유가 되기 때문에 그런 부분들에 있어서도 한번 다시 말씀을 드렸습니다.
Thank you very much. And Juliette, you wanted to bounce back. And to add also, there's been another question for you coming from Jinyob. I don't know if you saw that in the chat.
Yes, so I'll answer that as well in this. So yeah, we would obviously find ways of using the network and having recommendations, sharing footage, and being as environmentally responsible about how we find information and learn about the shows and the companies with the help of Extracts, definitely. So I just wanted to reiterate that it isn't, you know, there are lots of avenues to share your work with myself and Jeremy, and we do have a commitment to showcasing that. We do take safety into consideration around obviously COVID and elements of that, and that if the work is specifically of risk in terms of delivery, we would just put measures in place to make sure that performers and audience are safe. So with the water tanks for the show in 2019, we worked with the volunteers to make sure they were confident in water before the company arrived. But more than ever, we are thinking about environmental responsibility. So if a company have specific kit that needs to be freighted or transported over, we would be now really finding ways of actually, can we source the kit and the materials and the set in the UK? And that is really something that is going to be more pressing for us. Numbers of performers, you know, and kind of that cost of getting people over. We are looking at that more, and how much can be done digitally before show and before festival. And having two companies come at the same time and sharing that resource feels like a really great idea. And that was mentioned earlier, that is definitely something we would do. And sharing shows with other festivals that are the same weekend or the following weekend, so that they're doing two festivals, is also something we would look at.
네, 줄리엔께서 말씀하신 부분이 현재 지금 엑스트랙스의 도움을 통해서 어떤 네트워크를 활용하면서 여러 가지 추천도 받고 있고, 후티지 영상도 공유가 되고 있고, 여러 가지 이제 공연에 올릴 그럴 분들에 대한 아티스트 그리고 회사들에 대한 정보도 공유가 되고 있습니다. 저희가 그렇게 계속 노력을 하고 있고요. 네, 그리고 채팅창에서 안전상에 대한 고려도 하시느냐고 채팅창에서 말씀해 주셨는데, 네, 저희도 안전 문제에 대해서도 굉장히 심각하게 고려를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 물론 당연히 코로나로 인한 그런 방역 이슈도 굉장히 중요하게 생각을 하고 있고요. 만약에 그 작품을 이제 퍼포밍을 하면서 그게 조금 위험한 부분이 있다라고 하면은 그 부분에서 어떤 사고가 발생하지 않도록 미리 예방 조치를 취해 놓고 있습니다. 예를 들어서 2019년에 그 물질 공연 때에도 저희가 그 물탱크 관련해서 자원봉사자 분들의 도움을 받아서 더 안전하게 그런 부분을 해결한 그런 경험이 있습니다. 뿐만 아니라 또 환경에 대해서도 저희가 많은 그 고심을 하고 있고요. 그 다음에 이제 그다음에 2개 이상의 그런 어떤 쇼를 또는 회사들을 한꺼번에 저희가 초청을 하는 거, 네, 그것도 저희가 또 좋게 생각하고 있는, 긍정적으로 생각을 하고 있는 부분입니다. 그래서 저희가 뭐 같은 그 주말에 같이 공연을 올린다든지 아니면 한 주 먼저 올리고 그 다음 주에 올린다든지 그래서 같이 이렇게 공연을 함으로써 시너지 효과를 발휘하는 그런 부분들을 보는 것도 저희가 또 기쁘게 생각하는 분야 중 하나입니다.
Thank you very much. And Anju, you had a question. Do you wanna say it to the team? If you want to, if not, you've written it.
Sorry. 한국말로 할까요?
I say in Korean?
예, 한국말로 하면 통역해 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 질문 첫 번째는요. 팬데믹 이후에 축제 프로그래밍을 하는 어떤 정책적인 부분 아니면 큰 뭐 틀에서 어떤 변화가 있는지 있다면 어떤 것들이 있는지 좀 궁금한데 뭐 축제 카테고리를 좀 변화시킨다든지 아니면 주제를 다른 방향으로 바꾼다든지 포맷을 뭐 특정 포맷을 더 원한다든지 아니면 축제 기간을 뭐 그 전에는 되게 컴팩트한 기간, 뭐 일주일간의 기간 동안 하는 경우가 많았는데 그거를 더 넓은 기간으로 퍼뜨리든지 아니면 장소 같은 것도 다른 곳을 더 찾아보는지 공연 규모는 대형 공연이 많았었는데 그런 걸 축소해서 중형이나 아니면 소형 위주로 프로그래밍을 하게 되는지 그런 것들이 좀 궁금합니다.
So the first question would be the changes after this corona pandemic. So after pandemic, are there any policy changes in running the festival? I'm talking about if there's any category changes or thematic changes, or are there any preferences in the format of the show, or is there any period changes in such as, so for example, when the show was about 1 week before the corona pandemic, now is it going to be longer than that? Or are there any changes to venues? Or are there any changes to the scale of the show? Because before the corona pandemic, there were large scale shows. However, after pandemic, are there going to be smaller shows or medium scale shows?
Thank you very much. To answer this question, it would be great to hear from you, Juliette, again, if you're up for it, and maybe hear from Cholsong and Jinyob as well, if you've had experiences in your dealings with international programmers, how the pandemic affected. Juliette first.
Yes, so the format hasn't changed. We have a large scale show to launch on the Thursday and a large scale show finale on the Sunday. We are looking at having less nighttime shows so that we use less power for lighting. So we may make one of the days, the Friday or the Saturday, finish earlier. But in terms of scale of show, we haven't changed that. We are not thinking about social distancing and an audience number. The format will still change. Intimate shows, interactive elements for audience, as well as big scale as well. Our budget hasn't changed. We are very lucky that our Arts Council funding has remained the same. And the support from Council is, if not more, prevalent and kind of supported. So that hasn't changed. What has changed, or what will be changing, is that there's huge redevelopments to the footprint and the buildings in the town. So between now and 2025, there's huge demolition of old buildings that are no longer fit for purpose, and then it's going to be completely paved to have 2 new specific event spaces. But that will obviously change the footprint of the festival temporarily. So we need to think creatively about what spaces we can use and use in different spaces, using spaces outside of the town, kind of more green spaces and slightly out of the centre while that work is happening. We have a time frame, but building and capital developments don't always run to plan. But when it's complete, we've got an amphitheatre. We're bringing the whole high street back to the river. So it's exciting for the town. But in terms of COVID, that hasn't changed things thematically. we still kind of have a diversity of show and all elements of outdoor arts, possibly with a theme of puppetry as a focus, but as a subtext focus, not a main theme, if that answers the question.
네, 그래서 줄리엣님이 발표 일단 말씀을 해주셨고 그 이후에 철성님하고 진영님도 말씀해 주시면 감사할 것 같습니다. 일단은 줄리엣님이 말씀해 주신 부분에 대해서 통역을 드리자면 일단 포맷이나 규모는 크게 변화가 없습니다. 포맷도 같고요. 대규모 공연도 펼쳐지고 있습니다. 그래서 저희가 지금 목요일과 일요일에 대규모 공연이 예정이 되어 있고 그다음에 네, 한 가지 좀 바뀐 점이라고 하는 점은 이제 밤 시간에 해가 지고 나서 하는 쇼의 수가 조금 저희가 좀 줄여서 일찍 좀 쇼를 끝내려고 합니다. 그래서 조명 그런 문제도 있기 때문에 그리고 뭐 사회적 거리두기라든지 관객의 수라든지 그다음에 참여형 그런 공연이라든지 그런 거는 저희가 조금 덜 하려고 하고 있고 하지만 그 외에도 펀딩도 저희가 사실 그대로 같은 금액으로 받고 있고 그리고 지원 경우도 카운슬에서 받는 지원의 경우도 더 받았으면 받았지 더 줄어들거나 하는 그런 경우는 없었습니다. 그러나 이제 좀 바뀌는 부분들이 있다면 저희가 이제 전체적으로 이 지역을 재개발에 들어가게 됩니다. 그래서 빌딩들이 이제 지금부터 2025년까지 쭉 이제 대규모 철거가 이루어질 예정입니다. 그래서 새롭게 조금 장소를 바뀌어서 진행이 되는 부분이 있을 거예요. 예를 들어서 저희 타운 조금 외곽에서 진행을 한다든지 그다음에 조금 풀밭이 있는 그린 스페이스에서 진행을 한다든지 좀 이런 식으로 장소를 좀 바뀌어서 진행이 되는 부분이 있을 거고요. 다 완료가 되면 철거가 되고 다시 저희가 이제 정비를 하게 되면은 다시 저희가 그 강 쪽으로 다시 그런 공연장들을 계속 불러 모을 예정입니다. 그래서 코로나 때문에 여러 어려움들이 있기는 하지만 그래도 저희만의 어떤 그런 다양성들은 계속 지키고자 노력을 하고 있다는 점 말씀을 드립니다.
Thank you. Jinyob, in your experience so far talking to international programmers, what do you think about the COVID impact?
Okay. 올해 이제 스페인에서는 계속 초청을 했었고요. 이탈리아랑 스페인에서는 계속 코로나랑 상관없이 계속 진행을 하자고 했었고 이제 또 덴마크에서 이제 협업을 하러 갔을 때도 관객 참여형 공연이었는데 당연히 계획보다는 모든 걸 할 수 없었지만 그 공연 그 그런 노동조합에서의 규칙이 있더라고요. 같이 하는 그 관객 참여형 공연 안에서 앉아 있을 때는 1m의 거리를 두고 관객 참여형 공연을 할 수 있고 섰을 경우에는 2m의 거리를 두고 할 수 있고 그래서 그런 규칙들을 따르면서 예술가들이 공연을 만들었어요.
So from my experience, in fact, Spain and Italy, they have kept inviting us to their festivals regardless of the COVID-19. And when I went to Denmark, it was a citizen involvement performance, and they had this rule set up by a labor union. So the rule was that if people are seated, they had to be seated 1 meter apart from each other. And when they were standing, they had to be standing 2 meters apart from each other.
Thank you. This is a challenge also to adapt to all the local COVID rules from one country to another. It's difficult. What about you, Cholsong? What's your experience so far?
나라마다 그런 룰이 다른 게 좀 힘든 부분인 것 같습니다. 철성님 말씀해 주시겠습니다.
네, 일단 지금 팬데믹 상황에서는 해외 공연을 못 나가고 있고 그러나 이 마사지사를 한국에서 축제들에서 어떻게 이 팬데믹 상황에서 변환시키면서 하고 있는가에 대한 두 가지 얘기를 하자면 하나는 마사지사를 셀프 마사지사라는 버전으로 바꿔서 남을 마사지하는 게 아니고 남을 못 건드리니까 자기를 마사지하는 그래서 자기의 떠진 종이 몸을 갖고 하는 그런 버전이 하나 있었고 또 하나는 한 사람을 위한 마사지사, 그래서 여러 사람이 모이지 못하니까 그 한 사람을 여기 대부도라는 섬이 있는데 이 섬에 데리고 와서 그 사람만을 위한 마사지를 하는 그런 프로젝트를 진행한 게 있어요. 그래서 여기 한국에서는 다른 나라보다 훨씬 엄격하기 때문에 우리는 굉장히 극성이거든요. 극성, 영어로 뭐죠? 극성이라 그런 식으로 공연이 굉장히 많이 바뀌고 있다. 그런 얘기를 나누고 싶네요.
So, from my experience, I would like to tell you about my experience because so due to the pandemic situation, we are not able to perform outside of Korea. So instead, what we did was that we made two variations of the massager, the show in Korean festivals. So the first variation was the self-massager, because we cannot touch others due to this COVID-19 situation. In the self-massager performance, we cover our bodies with the paper, and then we self-massage ourselves so that the paper can transform the way it alongside the body curves. And the second was that the massager for only one person, because we are not allowed to gather together in a large scale. So the performers, so we did this project where we take one person to this island called Daebudo, and we do the massage for only one to the only one person there. So since the COVID-19, the rules have been really tight, and especially in Korea, there are some really tight policies and rigorous policies against the COVID-19 situation. So these two variations were the ones that we were able to do to cope with the situation.
Right, thank you very much. Next, we have a question for Ju Young. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. You have your hands.
주님 질문 부탁드릴게요.
이거 어떻게 없애지? 잠깐만요. 됐다. 저는 질문이라기보다 말씀을 들으면서 최성님하고 진영님의 얘기를 들으면서 떠오른 생각들을 얘기하려고 하는데요. 일단 제 상황, 제 경험을 제가 어떤 상황에 처해서 하는 말인지 벌써 말씀드리려고 하는데, 저는 프랑스와 한국을 오가면서 살고 있고, 한 3년간 10개, 프랑스랑 한국을 포함한 다른 해외 10개국에서 공연을 했어요. 한 40개 정도 도시. 지금은 미국과 다른 나라들하고 또 얘기하고 있어서 이 해외 투어 해외 투어에 관련해서 생각들이 많았고, 풀어야 되는 문제도 많았고, 아직도 많은데, 그래서 일단 여기까지.
So thank you for the opportunity. But what I like to do is not asking questions. Rather, it's about adding some comment that I thought about while listening to Jinyub and Cheosung. So first of all, I would like to talk about my situation here. So as I said before, I live back and forth between France and Korea. And for the last 3 years, I've staged my shows in 10 different countries, including France and Korea. Also, that includes 40 different cities. Also, I am having some discussions with the US and other countries as well regarding the international touring. And I have some obstacles to overcome to do the international touring.
많은 나라들에 가서 공연할 수 있었지만, 제가 한국에서 출발해야 됐다고 하면은 불가능했을 거라고 생각하거든요. 그래서 결국 아무리 해외 프로그래머들이 많이 한국에 와서 우리 아티스트들의 우리의 공연을 본다 한들, 축제 입장에서는 비행기 값까지 다 되면은 다른 팀을 초대할 수 있는 가능성이 적어지고 어쨌든 축제 예산 한정적이고 그래서 결국 예경이나 한문희 같은 국가기관 이 국가의 아티스트들의 그들을 서포트를 해줘야 하는 건데 저는 그 시스템의 근본적인 문제가 있는 것 같아요. 일단 하나마나한 얘기지만 총량이 예술가가 가져갈 수 있는 총량이 너무 적고 나라에서 지원해 주는 게 너무 적은 것 같고요. 그리고 아까 진엽이 말했던 화물비 50% 좀 정말 믿기 어려운 정도의 그 이야기 갈 수 없는 상황이 너무 많은 것 같아요. 재정적으로.
So the reason I was able to perform in many different cities and countries because I did not start in Korea. Because even if Korea invites many different artists and companies from outside of Korea, it would not have been possible because there are limitations to the grants and subsidies that the Arts Council and the camps could provide. So I think the underlying problems of the limitations to the international touring of the Korean artists and companies is that the Korean organizations, artist organizations, they provide so little funding and supports to these Korean artists. But for example, just as Jinhyuk mentioned, still the Korean artists they have to pay 50% of the total freight cost, and this can be too much. So this is something that cannot be they cannot be overcome, in one night. However, I just wanted to mention about this problem.
그래서 아무리 해외 프로그램 서울거리예술센터와 캄스의 지원을 받아서 숙박비와 비행기까지 해결해서 온다 한들 이 예경과 한문희가 뒷받쳐주지 않으면 그거는 축제 감독들의 한국 나들이 정도에 그치지 않을까라는 생각을 했었고요. 그러니까 몇 년 전부터. 예술가들의 측면에서는 약간 투어를 생각하고 있다면은 그래야 되는 건 아니지만 만약에 투어를 하고 싶다면 제작 단계에서부터 생각을 내가 이 공연에 필요한 그 소품들이 무대 장치들이 어떤 경로를 통해서 어느 정도 기간을 통해 그 바깥으로 나갈 수 있을까? 그거를 제작 단계에서부터도 생각하는 게 유용할 것 같다라는 생각이 듭니다.
So no matter how many artists and directors or programmers outside of Korea can be invited to Korea by the support from the Seoul Street Arts Creative Center and other festivals in Korea, if the Arts Council, Korea Arts Council and the camps, if they not provide much support, then it would be very difficult for us to accommodate all of them. So what I would like to also say is that if you are thinking of going the international touring, you have to consider the whole situation from the production stage. You have to think about the props and sets that will be also shipped from Korea to other countries.
그리고 이제 그만 말할 건데 너무 많은 얘기하고.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. I'm just aware of time, and we have 5 minutes before we need to wrap up. And I think we have one more question that's, I think, very practical about presenting work in the UK. So if you can just to let you know, if we can just speed up so we can move on to one last question.
네네. 그리고 그 해외 투어 정할 때 한 번 해외에 나가서 공연하고 나서 그게 어떻게 한 번에 그치지 않나. 그게 한 번에 그치지 않고 다음으로 또 다음 해로 이어질 수 있는 거는 처음에 나갈 때 어떤 페스티벌을 가는지, 어떤 곳에 가서 공연하는지, 그러니까 얼마만큼 프로그래머들이 많이 오는 축제에 가서 공연하는지가 중요할 것 같아요.
So the last thing I would like to say is that when you think about doing the international touring, you don't want this to be a one-time thing. So you have to be really careful in choosing the festival you're going for, because you want to choose the festival that accommodates a lot of directors from other festivals and countries.
Thank you so much. And I feel really bad for stopping your flow, because this is very important and valid points. So thank you so much for making those points. I saw in the chat we had a question from Andrew, and from what I can understand, I think you have very specific points you want to ask, and I'm not sure we'll be able to cover that today, but at least get some of those things on people's minds. If you want to go ahead.
네, 저는 이번에 새로운 작업에 들어가면서 제가 영국에 살고 있기 때문에 제가 살고 있는 그 지역의 카운슬에 장소 사용을 위해서 컨택을 직접 하게 됐어요. 근데 일단 컨택을 하는 것도 쉽지 않았지만, 이제 서류를 낼 때 그쪽에서 이제 고지된 사항이 뭐였냐면, 이런 것, 공연에서 어쨌든 셋업을 하는 거였는데, 리스크 어세스먼트랑 퍼블릭 라이애빌리티 인슈런스랑 임플로이 라이애빌리티 인슈런스랑 이벤트 매니지먼트 플랜이랑 이벤트 사이트 플랜, 이런 것들이 같이 포함돼서 제출이 되면 좋겠다라는 이제 고지가 있었어요. 근데 이제 축제 같은 경우는 이걸 다 준비하진 않겠지만, 축제에서 이것들을 이제 제출해야 되니까 저희 같은 이제 참여 컴퍼니 단체들 같은 경우에도 뭔가 테크니컬 라이더를 내지만 거기에 덧붙여서 뭔가를 더 이렇게 우리가 이런 것들 고려해가지고 제출해야 되는 게 있는지 궁금합니다.
So as I am working on this.
Don't worry for translating. We got the question in the chat, and I think it's more important if Jinyob and Cholsong reply directly, since we have so little time left.
Okay.
Jinyob, do you want to say something?
그건 이제 이거 보고 있었는데, 저희도 사실 비자 받을 때 임플로이 관련된 보험이나 재직증명서, 보험 관련된 걸 해야 되더라고요, 영국에. 아까 비자 받을 때 기간이 많다고. 근데 저도 영국에서 작업했을 때 이 자료들 다 달라고 하긴 했었어요. 근데 아마 축제에서는 그걸 다 해줬던 것 같아요. 근데 이제 비자 받을 때는 저희가 같이 가는 예술가들의 재직증명서, 그들이 돈을 얼마를 받고 있는지, 그리고 전체적인 보험을, 여행자 보험이 아니라 배상 책임 보험을 저희 한국에서 들고 오라고 하더라고요. 그래서 아마도 축제는 어떤 거랑 다른지 모르겠어요, 개인하고는.
So I would say that when I was applying for the visa, I was asked to submit some documents, including employee insurance and the proof of employment letter, and also how much money the performers are getting. So I think the festival authority, they also took care of all these documents for me. So I am not really sure how what else could be done for what else could be asked to in terms of the festivals.
Great, thank you very much. It's 10:57 here. We have 3 minutes left, and I'm worried that we won't have enough time to take or answer any more questions. But it's been really great to hear Cholsong and Jinyob talk about their experience, and it's been amazing to hear all of you feeling into the conversation, hearing your point of view and your questions. I wish we could carry on for another 2 hours. There's so much we could say and so much we could cover, but unfortunately we can't. So I just want to say a massive thank you, and I'm sure you will carry on those conversations in your following sessions, and I'm here. If you have any questions, you can email me as well. I'm happy to help. I'm sure the Extracts team is here too. So yeah, hopefully I will see you all very soon at the UK festival, or I will come to see you in Seoul.
Thank you so much, Axel. That's brilliant. And thank you very much to all of the wonderful speakers. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to say a couple of things, and I will try to stop for translations. I'll stop here, let Sunyin translate, and then I'll carry on.
I'm actually doing the live captioning right now, so you can just go on.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to build on the point that we discussed about how important it is to present your work at showcase festivals. And just to say, since Juliet is here, that Extracts and SURF have a collaboration kind of ongoing. So we are delivering showcase activity with them next year and hopefully in the years to come. So if you are thinking about specific festivals, then in the UK, the kind of Extract showcases are always a good opportunity to maximize the exposure of your work. So that's just one point to say. And then also just building on what Jin was saying around the fact that, you know, sometimes we think that we are not lucky because we don't have all of our costs covered for international travel or touring. But actually in the UK, there's no organization that will cover your flights or your freights if you do international work. It's only in very limited occasions that the British Council may be able to support it. So in a way, just kind of consider that when you're thinking about your international touring, that it's very few countries around the world that can do that. And so try to build on what you have. Yeah, just thought I'd mention that. So yeah, so thanks everyone for wonderful speakers and wonderful participants, the brilliant translation and captioning, and Sue and Jin for the links that you've been posting on the chat. That's all been really helpful. And we will add Juliet's email to the contact list that we will send everybody so that you can continue having those conversations. And then just as a reminder, the next sessions as part of the Career Connections program are happening next week. So we will have a session around introducing outdoor arts in Korea on Wednesday from 6 to 8 Korean time. And that's mainly aimed at UK participants, but any of you who would like to come and share your thoughts are super, super welcome to do so. And then the final session will happen next Friday, the 10th of December, between 6 and 8 p.m. Korean time. That's 9 to 11 British Greenwich kind of Meridian time. And it's about bringing your outdoor work to Korea. So it's this same session, but the other way around. So finally, as you know, you will receive a short evaluation to gather thoughts on the program, and just wanted to reiterate to please complete it. This is the kind of thing that really helps us get funding to continue programs like these and to continue building bridges between the UK and Korea. And this is something that we do want to do. And one of the questions that we have in that evaluation form is, how do you see us evolving this program? So let's continue to talk about and think about how we can build on this to make sure that those connections aren't just kind of left hanging, but that we can really build something meaningful. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you all very, very much. Have a lovely, lovely evening, and we'll hopefully see you very, very soon. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Lovely to see you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. 감사합니다.
Bye. Bye.